Right, okay, so the intention of this session is to help you with how to write a strong application and learning from a successful applicant. And as we mentioned, Diane Gwilt is here to help us with that. So we'll go on to the next slide. So the agenda for today is Community Ownership Fund, obviously, and the support programme, how to apply and the assessment criteria, the overview of the strategic case and management case. Putting that in a nutshell of what you need to consider, putting together a successful application in practice and hearing from a successful group. There's my details there if you want to come back to me in the future. Okay. So the Community Ownership Fund is a department for levelling up and housing and communities, and the support programme has 10 leading community support organisations combining our knowledge and skills to help with the Community Ownership Fund. So between us, we cover the whole UK and cover a deep knowledge base and experience of working with organisations developing a range of community assets. As you can see, we at Cyd Cymru DTA Wales is on your left, but locality is the organisation in England that does the admin for the COF fund. Northern Ireland, Scotland, Plunket, as Diane Cameron mentioned, Cooperatives UK, Shared Assets, Sporting Assets, HF, which Adam mentioned he works with, Compass, and obviously we have an organisation like WCVA and others in Wales that we can mention later. Okay, right. So how the Community Ownership Fund support programme can help groups. So useful resource via the My Community website and webinars. Now then, if you haven't come across the My Community website, I suggest that you have a look at that and see, and there's a plethora of different information and files and documents on there that you can actually consider if your group is eligible and what you need to consider in a COF fund. An advice service for any questions about COF support available. So if you want to ask questions, then there is a line or a portal that you can send questions in, and if it's in Wales, it'll come to me. And if I can't answer it, then I can ask various other partners to give me some information and signpost people to that answer. And then we can give in-depth support packages. We'll be available to some groups. Now, if you do send an expression of interest, and I'll speak to that about that later on, then we can maybe support you with some extra funding or extra support. Okay, right. So what is the Community Ownership Fund? Well, the £150 million fund exists to help local communities across the UK to take control of assets, amenities or facilities that are at a risk of loss without community intervention. Now that's the crucial element of this, it's at risk of loss without community intervention. So the risk can be different from one facility to another. It could be a risk of closure, it could be a risk of sale, a risk of neglect and dereliction under current ownership, energy inefficiency that threatens long-term sustainable operations, and unsustainable current business model. So there's different things there that I'm sure that would be of interest to you. So the rounds, there are 4 rounds in each year. So from round 3, there is up to £2 million worth of capital to purchase or lease a local asset or to help pay for essential renovations. And the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Community expects most applications to be up to around 250,000. So the COF funds must be matched 20% or more from alternative sources. I'm sure you need to find obviously 20% of in kind, or sorry, of monies that you have in reserves, or you can borrow, or that you have available to consider. And then there is a revenue funding up to 20% of the capital ask. so up to a maximum of 50,000 to fund project development costs. So this is free money, basically. You don't have to match the ask for capital funding. So if you are asking for 250,000 capital funding, you're allowed up to £50,000 of revenue funding, free of charge, without any match funding. Have a chat about that later if you like. How to apply? Now then, right, so the expression of interest. Now then, in order to apply, you need to send an idea that you have for the fund by sending an expression of interest, which is online, and it's a form to check eligibility, and you can then submit it to the DLUC at any time. So the DLUC will write to all successful expression of interest applicants with a link to a unique online application form for every round. So groups only need to submit a new EOI if the proposal has changed substantially. That is a different asset. So if you have more than one, obviously, that might be appropriate. 4 funding rounds a year, which I mentioned, until March 2025. So round 3 bidding window 3 will be opening on the 7th of December now, next week, and will be closed on the 31st of January 2024. And successful groups can reapply, and we recommend reviewing how you can improve your application to meet the assessment criteria. So it says don't just resubmit. So that's understandable. So top tips for submitting an application. So we recommend using a central organization email address for expression of interest, so that you know that you can be informed of that. It doesn't matter if you haven't got a central organization, but it helps. Use the Word version of the form on My Community to draft your answers. Once it helps to sort of galvanize your ideas onto a Word version, start off with, before you submit an online version. Once if you don't complete and submit your online application form by the deadline of that round, your work will be lost. So that's just something for you to bear in mind. So you've got a copy of a Word version on your file somewhere if that's the case. Once an application has been submitted, you cannot edit or submit any further information or documents. So make sure that you've got everything up to up to what you want to do with your application, and evidence of what have you is current, and that's you've got everything in place. Limited number of attachments. Attachments should be a single file, no bigger than 10 megabytes in the various formats. And we have a guide on with tips on submitting a COF application, including making your file sizes smaller if that's a problem for you to submit a large file. But maybe worth putting it in a PDF or something like that, and maybe using that as one file. Obviously, it's not good practice if you leave it to the last couple of days of being around being open to submit your application. And the round closes on the last day of January, as I mentioned, at 12 o'clock or 11:59, as the case may be. Okay. Avoiding problems later. So projects cannot be changed after submission, as I mentioned, and any cost incurred before the deadline for submitting an application in the window that you applied in will not be eligible as match funding. So don't spend anything that you might want to use as match funding before you get the go ahead. DLUC may take a legal charge on the building if you want to buy the building, and COF is subject to procurement rules, so you might have to go out to get more than one quote depending on what your project is all about. Seeking advice if your organisation is subject to any legal action, and obviously check if any of your directors have been disqualified for various reasons. Questions so far? Anybody got any questions? I'm going to look in the chat now. Can't see anything else yet. Okay. Right. We'll go on then. If there's nothing else at the moment, obviously you can get these slides once we finish, so you can have these. Okay. Assessment criteria. So Right. Diane, do you want to just come in?
Yeah, Arvon, I don't want to preempt what you're going to say, but I just think it's just worth saying that you don't have to submit your expression of interest and your application in the same bidding round, because the way that you've just talked about it sort of suggests you have to do both. But the way it works in practice is you submit an expression of interest, then you get your letter back saying that if you've been successful or not, and then once you've had your expression of interest approved, you can apply in any of the subsequent bidding rounds. You don't have to do it all in one, because although technically you can do it in one, because by the time the turnaround for the expressions of interest is reasonably swift. So theoretically, there is enough time to do both. You don't have to do that. And I would strongly advise that you don't do that based on, having done this process. We didn't do that. We submitted an EOI in one bidding round and then submitted the application in the second bidding round. So I just thought it might be helpful to make that clear. But I'm sorry, Arvin, if I've stolen something that you were going to say later.
No, that's good to explain the situation. So if you want to put in an expression of interest at any time, you can have the opportunity to, once that's been confirmed, then you're eligible then to actually make a full application in any of the next rounds. It doesn't have to be this one straight. That's opening next in the calendar. Okay, thanks very much.
Alvon, could I just ask a question as well?
Yeah, sure.
How detailed is an expression of interest? Is it a vision, or is it specific details?
It asks essential questions like why do you want money, what kind of support you need, contact details, that kind of thing, really. Is it refurbishment? Is it for purchasing? That kind of thing, really. So it's not a huge amount of detail that's needed, but feel free to have a look at it and see what you think, and then go away and have a think about what you need to add, really. Okay. So you don't have to do that.
Arvon, perhaps I could come in here again, having done one. Basically, it asks you for all those details, and then you've got it's only about 2 or 3, I think it might be 500 words to describe it, and it asks you to describe your project as if you were talking to your friend in the pub. That's the sort of level of detail that you need for that. So it's really, really kind of high level. It's like, you've met someone and you're saying, oh, I've got this really good idea. We're going to be doing this project, and how you would describe it to a friend. That's what they ask for.
Yep. Is that okay, Mark?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Right. So there's 2 elements to the application: a strategic case and a management case, and you need to achieve a minimum score on both. So the assessment criteria scoring matrix on DLUHC's website sets out what is required in detail to submit a strong application. So I would suggest that you have a look at that as probably one of as well as the prospectus that's there as probably your first port of call for the fund, because it then sets out exactly how and what you need to actually address in putting an application together. So bear that in mind. So it's the assessment criteria which has the scoring matrix on it. So please have a look at that as part of the consideration for the application. Okay. So that's assessment criteria and weighting. So as you can see, there's a strategic case and management case. Community use, funding breakdown, benefits, financial risk forecast, engagement, skills and resources, environmental sustainability, representation, inclusiveness, integration. So it sets out exactly how they want to see an application being considered, and as you can see, there's quite a lot of different scoring and assessing that's needed for you to consider in the application. So there's a sub-criteria score of 1 to 5, minimum weighted, and an application that also requires a score of combined minimum of 12 across sections. So about that, if you look at the assessment criteria and the guidance, it'll explain in more detail what you need to consider, and it'll give you an idea how much. Because could you turn your microphone off when you can, please. Okay, so from a strategic case basis, they want to know who in the committee uses the asset currently, or has it been used in the past? Why is the asset at risk of loss? How would that loss affect the community? And why will the asset be lost without community intervention? And why is the asset better in community hands? Engagement and local support. Again, this is important. How has the community been consulted and shaped plans for the asset? And how can you demonstrate local support? How do plans for the asset fit with wider plans for the area? And please give details of local support, including any partners, obviously letters of support, and intentions of local partners is important as well. Strategic case benefits. What community benefits will the project deliver? How will planned activities deliver those benefits? How will you deliver and sustain the benefits over time? They need to have an understanding of, is it going to be 2, 3, 4 years you'll be developing the benefits and delivering? So, and how will the whole community benefit? Environmental sustainability, again, because we're conscious of the environment in everything we do these days. How will the project address this? And how do plans for building works address this issue? How does project include action and leadership on climate change? You know, we have to bear that in mind, and we're going into Climate Change Week now, aren't we? Okay, management case this time. COF wants to know the funding breakdown. Is there agreement to purchase or transfer and purchase price been agreed? Is there a breakdown of refurbishment works and price for each element? What's the total cost of project? Requirements from the COF, a breakdown of match funding. Where do you foresee that happening, or where does it come from? Details of professional advice taken from for example, condition survey, evaluation, etc. Financial and risk forecast. Obviously, details of activities underpinning revenue finance model. So you need to sort of identify what the revenue is likely to be. Budgets on 3-year cash flow with assumptions on sensitivity analysis. COF revenue funding, right? Well, again, you need, if you're going to apply for COF capital funding, then there's COF revenue funding available as well. So if you really think that you need up to, depending on how much you're asking, up to £50,000 worth of revenue funding, then that's something that you might want to consider in the financial forecast. And obviously the risk register is highlighting the key risk and mitigations. That's something that they're quite keen on seeing, that you've looked at all the various risks that can be considered. For example, the lack of match funding, to various other building regulations or whatever, that kind of thing, really. Anything that you think that might be of risk. Okay. The management case, again, skills and resources. That they're quite keen to see that the governance, your membership structures, and how they operate. You will need to consider, obviously, who's on your board, if you are already structured to buy or to refurbish a building or whatever, then obviously that's they need to know who the membership are and what kind of model of governance that you got, a legal entity as a kick, or a charity or a community interest or whatever. If you've got previous experience of managing this type of project, better the managing those who are in charge of the asset have experience of doing this type of thing. Board members, including their roles and main responsibilities, they'd like to know who they are. And obviously the roles required to manage the asset. Are you going to be recruiting anybody? Obviously, the policies and procedures and systems need to be in place, and that you can do those if you haven't done them already. Representation, inclusiveness and integration. Now then, because this is a community project, the COF obviously wants to know how will the asset be accessible to everyone in the community. Does it has the community been consulted on and involved in running the asset, and how organisation will be accountable to the local community? So bear that in mind going forward. Top tips. So don't forget to apply for the revenue funding, as I mentioned, to help cover your first year of project cost. Follow the assessment guidance and address every point, as I mentioned. That is how the application is scored. Make sure your business plan aligns to the COF assessment criteria, and that will be in that assessment guidance. And refer to evidence. For example, who's been supporting you? Have you done any consultations? How many people have been involved, and what have you? And compare and research. And once you've done that, explain your reasoning and be consistent. So you're telling the story, and make sure that
I've heard it all before, but they saw me. I logged on. I waved to all the officials. Yes, I could see that. Definitely. And I explained that I had you here, and I was going to have to come down. So they.
Hello, Kirsty. Do you mind turning your microphone off, please?
And I've got with me my copy of the book from tomorrow. And also this is.
I'll take a photograph.
No, you can have it.
Are you sure?
Right, okay, so where was I? Right, explain your reasoning and be consistent. So what you need to do is ensure that your story is being told, and that anybody who's looking at it with a fresh pair of eyes can understand what your intentions are. Dealer can only go back to applicants briefly during the assessment process, and this is only a maximum of 30 minutes that they're allowed to go back to confirm anything. So please make sure that your application is totally, that it's totally understandable, and that's your application form, the business plan, and the attachments are all relevant and can match from the narrative to the business to the finance and everything else. And if you do want to look at another webinar on this subject, on a strong management case, or they're all on the My Community website, and there's also other facts and things like that on there as well.